In this video, I'm going to share 10 lessons I've learned the hard way. If you're an indie developer like me, these lessons are going to be a game changer for you. Trust me, I've learned each one of these lessons through 100% real fuck-ups and gather them in this video so that you can dodge the same mistakes. Hey there, it's NashDEV. I'm an indie game developer and single-handedly crafted Bowerwhelm. I share my game development journey on YouTube, and little did I know I made tons of mistakes along the way. Without further ado, let's get started. So your game might have design bugs. When developing a game, we call all the logical errors that occur as bugs. Just like your code can have logical errors, your game design can have them too. This is the most dangerous type of bug that could potentially make your game completely trash. Because when players find a bug in your code, it might even be funny to them. However, if there's a logical error in your game design, it will undoubtedly result in negative reviews and refunds for you. That's why you should fix any design bugs as soon as you encounter them. The logic of your game is the foundation of everything, and if the foundation is broken, what you build on it can collapse. For instance, in my game, not being able to see enemies coming from behind was a design bug. The only sensible solution was to make the game in third-person camera. However, despite being aware of this design bug, I kept postponing it. 2 days before the release date, I had a game that needed to be switched from first-person to third-person, and my character was just a capsule. So, I just skipped fixing it. Also, measuring the distance from enemies in the first-person view was very challenging, and balls touching us would naturally get into the camera. The goal of the game was to keep a distance from enemies and avoid them touching us. However, using a first-person camera was a logical error, and I already built the game on this broken foundation. So I released Bowerwhelm with the design bug, and eventually players started complaining about this design bug. I believe the most challenging part of making video games is managing time. There's always a release date, and to meet that date, we consciously remove certain features. But it is probably a bad decision to remove a feature to meet the deadline unless you're under investor pressure. Remember all the AAA releases in a downgraded version. However, if you have to remove a feature, you should do it very carefully, because it is much harder to reintegrate it later. I plan to add combining mechanics to skills in Bowerwhelm, like in the Vampire Survivors, but I thought it wouldn't make it by the release date. So, I cancelled this awesome feature. 6 months after release, I tried to add this feature back, but the code of the skill system was no longer compatible. Fixing it required almost starting from scratch. Eventually, I ended up eliminating a feature that could have doubled the playtime of my game, and I couldn't add it later. The best month for your game is the launch month. Your store page will get the most traffic it can ever get on the launch day. This is called the launch visibility, which is gifted to you by Steam, and it's your most potent marketing weapon. Launch visibility is a one-time deal, so you will not get the same visibility again. It's crucial to make the most out of the traffic during this period. While your store page is still being promoted by Steam, attract people to your Discord server. Engage them to buy your game. Integrate a Join Discord button within your game and reward users for joining. Utilize the free traffic offered by Steam to build a community. This community will not only contribute with suggestions and posts for your game, but will also keep your game alive through their communication with other players. Any game without an active community is bound to fade away. During the launch month of Bowerwhelm, I didn't add a Join the Discord button to the store page. My store page was viewed 207,000 times and clicked 14,000 times during its release month. Those numbers are extremely drastic for an indie game. If only 2% of those people had joined my Discord and seen the funny moments and strategy posts from other players, Bowerwhelm would have a community. Speaking of community, you can always join NashDEV Discord server through the link in the description. I'm giving away free Bowerwhelm Steam keys to the first 200 people in Discord. Game development is not just about creating a game, you also have to sell it. That's why it's crucial to have a deep understanding of the platform where you'll be selling. Please learn about the Steam platform, because to be honest, having a great game is not enough to ensure financial success. In this regard, it is highly recommended to familiarize yourself with Steam's algorithm. There are details in the Steam that may seem small, yet very important, and some individuals specialize in teaching them. Read their blog posts and listen to what they say. I failed hard when developing Bowerwhelm. The game was not ready when its first release date, and I didn't delay it. Later, I watched a conference where Chris Zukowski explained the logic behind the popular upcoming tab. According to his speech, every game had only one chance to get featured in the popular upcoming tab, and Steam pushes your game around 1 week before the release date, and my shitty store page was in popular upcoming tab because I didn't delay the game's release date. That was a great opportunity that I threw away. If I spent more time learning Steam's algorithm, I could have delayed the game and launched it with a well-designed store page for the popular upcoming tab. Another fuck-up was a recommendation I got from a small YouTube channel. The suggestion was to quickly set up a store page, even if it's not great. Unfortunately, I followed this advice, which turned out to be a significant mistake, because when you publish your store page for the first time on Steam, it gets a lot of traffic. It is similar to launch visibility. If I had known that, I would have launched with a well-designed store page instead of a poorly done one. Financial success is basically making more than you spend. So if you're not spending on your game, that means you're trying to make out of nothing, which is almost impossible. The idea that indie games are produced without any expenses is totally wrong. Every financially successful game has its budget plan, which works for the profitability. You may not have any money to spend on your project. Yet, if you still want to make a financially successful game, you should create a budget plan. Maybe you can find someone willing to spend this budget in exchange for your share. By the way, this is what we call investment. And believe me, investors will only be interested in the budget, not the game itself. To make that plan, you gotta dive into researching every service you can throw your money at. Take your time to reach out to live streamers who could play your game on a live stream, slide into those DMs and talk about your project. If they're doing paid promotions, get the lowdown on the costs and take notes. Do the same for freelancers. At the end of the day, you'll have a killer spending list to achieve financial success. And guess what? That list will play the most crucial part in your investor pitch. If you want to tell your development story, try finding a format that suits you. The best way to introduce the game without spending any budget seems to be sharing its development story on YouTube through devlogs. While it's a great method for building a community and promoting it, also hinders the development process. Narrating a story and crafting a video isn't as a quick task as it may seem, and it will steal time away from your project. Consider this stolen time because you might be doing something that could double the project's completion time. For me, almost half of the development time I spent on Bowerwhelm was dedicated to crafting devlogs and YouTube videos, but I shared my devlogs in a detailed narrative format. Of course, I eventually realized that the project was dragging on for too long, so I took a break from making videos and focused on my project. Instead, I could have shared my devlogs in a conversational format rather than storyfying, which is more aligned with my working style. What I'm telling you is, choose your storytelling format according to your situation. For instance, Garbage posts daily devlog videos in a casual conversational style, allowing him to allocate time to his project. On the other hand, Danny makes devlogs after finishing a project, enabling him to skip boring parts and create a 10-minute video consisting only of fun moments. You're free to choose your own way. I get it, talking taxes isn't exactly thrilling, but let me tell you, it's important stuff. I was pissed off when I saw how much got sliced off my first paycheck. So listen up, it's worth paying attention to this. Alright, let's break it down. When you sell a game on Steam, you're only pocketing about half of what's paid. The rest? Well, that's divided up between Steam and taxes. It hurts seeing a chunk disappear from your earnings, right? So, it's smart to get clued in on the tax side of things, figure out the paperwork, and try to keep as much of your hard-earned cash as possible without violating any laws. Now, let me share a little story of my first payment, which hit with double whammy taxes, both from the United States of America and Turkey. But here's the kicker. I could have taken advantage of this thing, call it a double tax agreement between the two countries to keep more of my money. And don't sleep on incentives either. Check out what perks your country offers for budding entrepreneurs. For instance, I was setting up my PC build for game development and paid it all by myself. Later I found that Turkey's government hooks up game developers with equipment support up to 20 grand, no strings attached. Sure, it takes some legwork to snag these goodies, but trust me, it's doable. Just a bit of paperwork hustle, that's all. Developing a game is a real challenge, but you know what? You don't have to go it alone. If you've got buddies who are into gaming as much as you are, they can be a huge help. And I'm not just talking about giving you some quick feedback. These guys can roll up their sleeves and get involved in all sorts of things, like designing levels, tweaking game balance, and more. All you've got to do is let them know what you need. When I was working on my game alone, doing fancy stuff like level design started feeling like a drag. So, I reached out to a buddy of mine. I showed him how to make levels with Unity, and he whipped up the Eastern Spirit and God's Universe maps for me. Plus, another friend of mine jumped in to handle the in-game balancing. Man, I wish I'd asked for their help sooner. So, as programmers, we all want our code to be spotless, right? It's kind of our thing, but let's be real. Not every single line needs to be squeaky clean. Spending ages making every detail perfect? Ain't nobody got time for that. Here's the deal. Clean code is awesome because it makes future changes a breeze, but sometimes you gotta prioritize. When you're crunched for time, a little messy code can actually save the day. Let me break it down with a story from my game, Bowerwhelm. I spent ages polishing up codes on side systems like notifications and achievements, but guess what? I never had to revisit those again because they were just side systems, so making them clean isn't actually worth it. On the flip side, the skill system was a different story. It needed constant revisits, and I made it way too spaghetti, ended up scrapping it and starting over. Lesson learned? Focus on what's going to be revisited. Don't try to make everything clean. I don't know how familiar you are with creating documents, but you can be sure it's really crucial. Please play all of the games in the genre of your own game and create a detailed review document. Carefully list the pros and cons of the game in these documents, because if you want to create a successful game, you need to produce something much better than your competitors. Otherwise, your game will be called a bad version of another game, and creating a document will aid in gaining a deeper understanding of this matter. And that concludes this video. I shared 10 lessons learned from publishing my first Steam game, each acquired through fails. Feel free to contribute to the community by sharing your own experiences and mistakes in the comments. If you found the content valuable, please consider subscribing. Goodbye.